Thank you so much, Rishi, and a word of thanks to Afra as well for highlighting a lot of the difficulties that you've encountered in obtaining information that really ought to be in the public domain. This is not information, in my view, that we should even have to be asking for. This should be available to us as a matter of course. And our experience is that not just with the hotels, but right across the board in a lot of the expenditure of public money, things that ought to be routinely disseminated to the public and to interested parties has to be fought for, tooth and nail. And I am forced to wonder sometimes as to whether this is a deliberate policy or, as bizarre as this might sound, whether the quality of management that we have in government is such that they themselves don't ask for this information. They themselves make decisions about spending billions of dollars without having the information that ought to be available to them at their fingertips. So that when people like Afra, Rishi, and myself come along, they see us as troublemakers. You know, they've made the decisions already. They don't see the need for this. So that's just something that I've thrown on the side. Now, my background, as you have heard, is essentially in corporate finance. So when I look at not just Sandals, but the Hilton, the Hyatt, and others before, I look at them mostly from that perspective. When an organization seeks to make a large-scale capital investment, there are certain practices that are expected. They are automatic almost. You would expect some level of explanation and detail of what it is you are seeking to acquire and why. Thus far, we have heard nothing of what we have asked Sandals for. I'm hearing implicitly about what Sandals is offering us. But what are we asking of Sandals? We are spending the money. It shouldn't be for Sandals to come and give us what they feel they should be giving us. It should be for us. And the terminology that's used is that you do a request for a proposal. That's an RFP. In it, you detail what it is you want. There has been no RFP to the best of our knowledge. To the best of our knowledge, we have a situation where the provider is determining what it is that is going to be given to us. It's like any one of us wanting a car and letting the manufacturer decide for us what they're going to give us without even asking how much it's going to cost in advance. That is the kind of level that we're operating at here. Now, despite the fact that so much information is lacking, there is in fact a lot of information that we do have. Some of it is what you might describe as negative information. So for example, we do know that we're not going to be given information. We know that for a fact. We have been told that Sandals is a fantastic company. Now, it certainly is a successful company. Does that make it a fantastic company? There are so many companies that we can all remember here that were regarded as fantastic companies just prior to 2008 to 2009 that suddenly were disasters from one week to the next. If we are going to be persuaded that we are making a good decision partly on the strength of the company that we're dealing with, then we need to know a lot more. And I'm going to start to tell you some more. In 2013, and I am not as good as Afra here, I can't give you an exact date in 2013, but in 2013, Sandals paid $20 million in settlement of a claim against them by the Turks and Caicos government with respect to, what is the correct terminology? With respect to underhand dealings with the government. They were effectively sued for having engaged in clandestine financial dealings with respect to their operation in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Now they settled, and they settled without admitting guilt. However, if we are to believe all that we are told about the acumen of Mr. Stewart and his son, about their great capacity as business people, I can assure you that they would not have allowed themselves to be deprived of $20 million without very, very good cause. And I think we should reflect on that whenever we are told that Sandals is a very good company that we should be happy to deal with, and that we should, in fact, in the words of the Minister of Tourism, that we deserve Sandals, as if Sandals is this great prize that we ought to be having. And furthermore, with regard to the reputation of Sandals, a survey was done by Hotels.com about 2 years ago into the market for all-inclusive resorts across the Caribbean specifically, and Sandals was not in the first three. Now, going beyond the company that we're dealing with, in making a decision about an investment of this sort, you do all your evaluations. Some of you may be familiar with some of the techniques. You do expected values, you do discounted cash flows, you do sensitivity analysis. You do all of these kinds of things based on projections as to what you expect to be the outcome. In a commercial enterprise, the numbers that you arrive at will drive your decision as to whether you wish to make a particular investment or not. That is complicated in the public sector because the public sector will often invest for reasons that are not purely financial. But what you ought to be doing is undertaking that kind of financial analysis, sharing that information, and insofar as there is a public good that overrides what might be otherwise the best decision financially, you establish what that public good is. So as was indicated, that you will achieve a certain level of training for your local people that would make them more marketable internationally, that you provide housing for people or whatever. But at least you do it in the knowledge of what it is costing you. You don't simply say, we have to do something for tourism in Tobago, and we run off and build a hotel. That is not the way you make an effective financial decision. And we're making this financial decision, remember, based on, as the Prime Minister himself alluded to on the weekend, the strength of what has happened with the other hotels in the past, intimating that the hotels in the past, the Hilton and the Hyatt, have been successful. I don't see that we've been presented with information that tells us that they are successful. Even with the Hyatt, as Afra mentioned, the numbers there are gross income. We don't know what the expenses are. We don't know what the revenue was in order to be sure that it is financially successful. So if we're going to be using examples of what's been done in the past to guide us into the future, then we need more information. I am troubled also by the fact that we are adopting an approach to solving a problem that seems endemic in the country. And that is, if you just do this, we will solve this problem. So if we just build a Sandals hotel, we fix tourism. If we just start hanging people, we stop murders. If we put speed guns on the road, we will stop people speeding. Most of the problems that we face, even problems in your day-to-day life, are multifaceted. You have to do a number of things, and you only know what those things are by doing thorough analysis, by understanding the nature of the problem, and even where you arrive at a solution, just as in medicine, the solution often comes with a byproduct, with some other consequence. It might be an upset stomach. It's the same thing with most of the decisions that a government must face. And to my mind, a responsible government would do all this work and not try to have us believe that if we simply allow Sandals to come here and build a hotel, that we solve Tobago's tourism problem. We were told that, by the way, with the Hilton in Tobago. Hilton, the big international brand, was supposed to be the cure to Tobago's tourism attractiveness problem, that we didn't have the 4-star and the 5-star rooms and the big brand. It has failed. Why has it failed? Do we know, have we done the analysis to guide us in moving forward with Sandals or somebody else? We haven't. At least we haven't as far as we are aware. We have asked for the information. It's either not been provided or we've been told that it doesn't exist. If we are going to solve problems, if we are going to move forward in a more constructive way, we have to get out of the same old, doing things the way we've been doing it in the past. You know the old adage, if you continue doing something the same way, you should expect the same result. And that is the fear that I have, and I know others have, not just with the hotels and with Sandals, but with so much of the governance in the country. Now, if I'm going to stick with the hotel a little bit, because I want to offer a way forward, because it's easy to be critical and say, you shouldn't do this, this is wrong, that is wrong. In my view, there are several things we need to do if we are to get serious about the tourism effort in Tobago. One is we need openness and transparency about what is available to hoteliers and developers. It should not rely on a developer having a conversation with the Prime Minister for that developer to know that there is an opportunity. That opportunity should be available to everybody. The terms of the opportunity should be available to every opportunity, to every possible developer. There may even be developers who are interested that we don't know about. So it's not even a case of going out and talking to all of them. We have to publicize the fact that we have opportunities available, that we want potential bidders. It's not quite an RFP, but it's, if you like, a stage before that we let people know. If there are to be tax concessions, let people know that there is a 10-year, 20-year tax concession. Let people know that you have the capacity to provide the raw materials to supply the hotel and so on. And you level the playing field. Talking about the level playing field raises another concern about the way we're going about the Sandals. Assuming that we give Sandals, let's say, a 20-year tax break, when the next developer comes along that wants to develop in the northeast of the island, let's say, do they automatically also get that tax concession? Or is this only for people who have a conversation with the right people in government? So, besides asking them, I want them to make a clear statement to say, these are the concessions that are available to everybody. Or this concession is for Sandals and Sandals only, and anybody else has to come and talk to us, and then we'll have a conversation. Now, going along that line further, I want to say something here, and I was reticent about saying this, but my colleagues have persuaded me that it will be all right. I have been working alongside a number of landowners in the northeast of Tobago who want to develop. I'm saying that because I want to make the point, I want to hammer home the point that it is not only Sandals that we have to rely on. And it's not about me and my clients. There are several other landowners, and there are citizens who are interested in developing the community-based tourism concept that individually might provide 2 rooms, but over a region will provide 100, 200 rooms, which is where we want to be. There needs to be conversations. These people need to know what is available to them, what concessions are available to them, and so on. Will they get the same tax breaks that Sandals gets? And many people will argue, I certainly would argue, that route, given our current economic climate, is better on many fronts. One being that virtually all the development that is necessary will be local. so that there'll be very little foreign exchange leakage in developing people who have existing properties as opposed to a major developer coming in from outside. So I want to advocate that we look at the other opportunities and we perform proper evaluation of the financing and the returns that we get from them. And also set that against the other benefits, especially for the community-based tourism, which has tremendous benefit for the villagers across the island, so that it's not a major international operation that's coming and taking away all the profits. The profits stay within the communities. So I would like to see a re-evaluation, but I want this to extend beyond just the hotel sector and tourism. The time has come for us to make more effective investment decisions. We are severely constrained in what we are going to be able to invest in going forward. We have to ensure that we spend that money much more effectively than we have done in the past. And we can do it, and there are opportunities there. And we ideally need to be innovative. And may I say something briefly about innovation and Trinidad and Tobago? I want to make a statement of the obvious. Innovation is about enabling something that we do not yet recognize. So when somebody comes and talks to you about innovation and says it's going to be in shipbuilding or it's going to be in something else, take it with a pinch of salt. We have to find ways, and it is challenging, but we have to find ways that would enable our citizens, and especially the younger ones, to come up with new business models, new business ventures that we around the table here haven't thought about as yet. We have difficulty right now getting financing for anything that's other than bricks and mortar or bringing stuff down and selling it at a markup. We already have a great difficulty with that. It is an even bigger challenge for youngsters to find anybody to support them with something that's truly innovative, particularly in technology. We have to get past that somehow. If we are encouraging our youngsters and if we are serious that we want them to step forward, we have to be the enablers. Government must become the enablers of this new wave of businesses that will drive the economy forward. Presently, we simply do not have that. And I want to close by coming to the other side of financial management. So you do the financial investment, you do all your projections, you do all your calculations, you decide you're going to go with sandals. The other side of investments and operations is the reporting, and we've been notoriously bad at that. Almost every week, you hear a minister suddenly discovering something in their ministry, which ought to have been on their desk months before. We have to address that so that we nip problems in the bud and we ensure that we get best value for money. And some of that goes back to what Rishi and Afra said about the lack of availability. I don't even know if they exist, about the management reporting, the exception reporting, and so on, which any proper management would need to have in place. And on that note, I am happy to close.